to this session where we're unravelling the hydrogen opportunity through a series of short, sharp lunchtime sessions, particularly showcasing HEA members in the first instance, and I'm very pleased to be joined today by colleagues from GHD. So we have Andrew Winship, who is Future Energy Lead for Hydrogen, and his colleague Rocio de la Torre Perez, hydrogen consultant. We've had a look through what they're going to tell us about, and some really interesting material on the total cost of hydrogen and some of the regulatory issues around the options for transporting hydrogen into and around Europe. We will be recording the session, so it will be available afterwards. And in terms of the structure for the day, we've got a short presentation from Andrew and Rocio, and then a bit of discussion, and then an opportunity to ask questions. So feel free as we go through to put questions into ideally the Q&A box, and we can keep an eye on them and move to them towards the end of the half an hour. If you use the Q&A box rather than the chat, it will make sure we don't miss anything. And the Q&A box gives you the opportunity to vote for questions, so they move up to the top of the heap, so to speak. So given we've only got half an hour, on that note, I will invite Andrew to start the presentation. Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, thanks, Celia, and welcome everybody. Looks like we've got a pretty good turnout. So thanks everybody for joining this. I'm sure you have better things to do, like have lunch, but hopefully, because most of you have got your camera off, you're probably having your lunch while you're listening to this. So enjoy. Let me share the slides. Okay, so now you've all disappeared. Please tell me or speak up if you can't hear us or see anything. But what we want to do over the next few minutes is share a bit of kind of learning and a bit of understanding that we've got from a couple of large gigawatt scale hydrogen projects that we've been the last kind of 12 months. So let's just kind of move on. So we want to give a brief introduction to who we are. For some of you, you may think GHD are the hair straightening company, but I can assure you we're not. We're a different GHD, and I'll explain that. And then I'll hand over to Rocio, who's going to talk about some of the learnings from those projects that I mentioned. I'm Andrew Winship. I lead GHD's hydrogen activities in the EMEA region, and I've been with GHD for a couple of years now. Prior to that, I spent the majority of my career in the industrial gases sector for BOC, Linde, and Air Liquide. Rocio, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Rocio de la Torre. My background is in chemical engineering and renewables. I have worked before in Repsol, and I joined GHD for a year and a half.
Okay, thanks, Rocio. So who are GHD? Basically, we're a leading professional services and engineering company that was founded in Australia more than 95 years ago. We operate kind of globally. We have around 11,000 employees, and we operate in kind of 5 main markets, as shown on the slide: water, energy and resources, buildings and property, environment, and transportation. The business is predominantly kind of made up of 3 main parts. There's a technical engineering consultancy business that Rocio and myself sit within. We have an advisory business, which is much more kind of focused on consulting and strategy development for clients. And then we have an emerging kind of digital business, which provides adjunct to those other 2 parts of the business. I mean, this slide kind of covers what we within GHD kind of refer to as future energy, the major kind of growth opportunity for our business. And the main point of this slide is to highlight the kind of wheel with the various elements around it. And you can see hydrogen is a key element of that, but within GHD, we have expertise in all of the other elements around this wheel, and how they interrelate with, with hydrogen in terms of kind of carbon capture, bioenergy, and and energy security and the like. So it just gives you a little bit of a flavor of the range of expertise that we have within our business. And as I mentioned, we're a global business. The black dots indicate where we have offices. So we're spread globally, and the green indicates where we've done business for clients. So we support our clients wherever they may be operating in the world. And we operate a kind of center of excellence, global centers of excellence. So we have one of those around hydrogen energy storage and energy networks here in the UK, but we equally have hydrogen and water and carbon capture and storage centers of excellence in other parts of the globe that can be readily called upon to support our clients wherever they may be. So that hopefully gives you a very brief introduction to who we are, and hopefully kind of you now know that we're not the hair straightening company. So I'll hand over to Rocio now, who will talk about some of the learnings that we've got from those projects, and then we will hopefully have time for some questions to follow. So over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm going to start talking about the hydrogen producing costs and the assessment of levelized cost of hydrogen. The hydrogen producing cost is defined as the hydrogen, which is the average net present cost of hydrogen delivered, considering capital and operation costs throughout the whole lifetime of the project. The main contributions to this cost are CapEx that we are considering to just produce hydrogen. It will be mainly the electrolyzer. Then it will be power, that it's renewables. Then we have as well fixed OEMs, that is maintenance and start replacements. And here in this slide, we can see as well that the cost related to water is negligible to the rest. But we must highlight the importance of have water resources, because if we have a limited amount, we cannot produce the hydrogen that we need. So it's essential, even if the cost is not that high to the rest. And at the right-hand side, we want to say this, that it's very important to know the incentives that you have in the country that you are going to do the project, because it would really impact the cost of hydrogen. So here I'm going to explain a little bit in the concept study that we did to produce green ammonia. So it consisted of 6 gigawatts of renewables with electrolyzer that had a capacity of 2.6 gigawatts, and it was to produce 2 megatons per year of green ammonia. So we had 3 different options. The first one was considering onshore wind to produce the hydrogen and the ammonia. The option 2 was solar, and then the option 3 was a hybrid of both. So for that, we did a techno-economical model to determine which of the options provided the lowest cost of hydrogen. On the left side, we can see that solar PV gave us the most expensive levelized cost of hydrogen, with almost $6 per kilogram of hydrogen. And then considering the decrease when we were considering only onshore wind, but the lowest one was when we went for a hybrid of 60% wind and 40% solar. So yeah, and our findings were that it was $3.25 per kilogram of hydrogen. On the right-hand side, it was just basically saying as I was mentioning before, just slides before, that the main contributor in the cost is the power generation, the renewables, and then it would be the CapEx. That in this case is electrolyzer, because we are producing hydrogen, and ammonia, because that transformation. And then after that is the buffers, the batteries, and the water cost is the minimum one compared to the others. Here, this slide is just to make clear that it's very good to do these assessments in a very early stage of the project, because it helps us to do a good decision. It helps us with our process decision making. And it helps us to understand the impacts of the incentives that we might have in the country that we are doing that project. And it also gave us some evidence of possible risks that we can go through during the project. So now I'm going to talk about EU regulation and the importance for it for this new market. So here we have a project that consists in 8 gigawatts of renewables, offshore wind in particular, and it was to produce green hydrogen. And we were considering different options to transport this hydrogen into Europe. So one of the options was to just transport that green hydrogen through the pipeline. Another one was to blend it with natural gas. Other one is produce synthetic methane. The last one was produce ammonia with it. So we had some challenges in regards to regulation. So I'm going to highlight the challenges in regards to regulation with blending hydrogen into the natural gas pipeline and producing synthetic methane with hydrogen. So here at the left side, challenges of blending hydrogen into the pipeline in Europe. So some of them is that we can only inject 3% of hydrogen into the natural gas pipeline, which is not a big quantity of exactly what we want. For example, in the UK, that is 20%, or that's what we want here. And we also had to comply with regulations. For example, there's a mandatory policy framework that sets sustainability criteria to produce green hydrogen. That regulation, the Direct 2, it basically sets that we have to have carbon emission savings of at least 70%. So, for example, if we have a natural gas boiler, so we have to save 70% of emissions when we're using green hydrogen. So we should be saving carbon emissions. And another challenge in regards to regulation is that the country where we were working on, they don't have a guarantee of origin, neither a certificate of origin. So we need to set up one, and it has to comply with the EU regulation. And in regards to the challenges with producing synthetic methane and transport it to Europe, is that we need to keep track and certify where it comes this year to and the renewable energy that we need to produce as synthetic methane. And at the same time, we have to have that carbon emission savings of at least 70%. Another one is that we at the moment don't have an effective carbon pricing system, so it needs to set up and basically comply with the EU regulation. So here, the slides, this is just a summary of both projects of the key learnings that we had. So first of all, reduce the cost of power, and electrolyzer will make a very big impact in reducing the cost of hydrogen. And as well, if we know the incentives in the country that we are working on, it also will make a very big impact in basically minimizing the cost and have a much more affordable price for hydrogen. We have as well regulatory limits, so we need certifications for hydrogen and other renewable fuels, and it's essential if we want to import it into Europe. So yeah, and at this moment, some countries do not have it, so they have to establish a certification scheme and a carbon pricing system. Excuse me. So, and in regards to technology challenges, we saw that the hydrogen pipeline transport was efficient, but it's very demanding in regards to investment, so it's very expensive and it takes a long time. And at the same time, it involves a lot of negotiations. So, for example, if we are producing hydrogen in the east and then we want to import it into Spain, basically the pipeline we cross a lot of countries that we need to be in contact. And yeah, so it's just we will need to do a lot of negotiations with different parties. We also have other technology challenges in regards to the low maturity of blending and deblending that hydrogen into the natural gas pipeline work. And then, because we saw that transport hydrogen was as well expensive, we were looking for producing ammonia, acetating methane, but as well, methanation is well, it's a low maturity technology as well, and so it's another concern that we must have and we must take into account. Yeah, and the last point that I wanted to make is that collaboration is key. So if we want to develop all these transport, this pipeline work, we need to collaborate with a lot of countries, so that's essential. We can look at a single solution, but the best one might not be just a single solution. It might be distributed and do a multimodal export route. And it's a very good opportunity to export in hydrogen, but we also have to take into account the local market, which it could be quite beneficial. And then let us know if you have any questions.
Okay, thanks, Rocio.
Yeah, thank you both. Thank you both. Really good presentation. And as I said, when we'd gone through it earlier, lots of thoughts came to my mind in terms of questions. So I will leap in with a couple of questions. As I say, we have an opportunity to hear from those in the audience. So do please pop your questions in the Q&A and we'll come to them very soon. So as a starting question from me, Andrew or Rocio, you were talking in your introduction about the origins of GHD and your international outlook and things. From the work that you've described and other work that you've been involved in, what would you say are the kind of key lessons for the UK?
I think as kind of Rocio has already touched on some of those, you know, the lessons in her last slide. I mean, you know, they're all very relevant for the UK, but I mean, just high pointing a few of them. I mean, large scale hydrogen projects, you know, kind of the ones that we've just described, you know, outside of the UK. I think they create a perception that you know, that there's the risk that the UK is falling behind because the projects that, you know, kind of are kind of under discussion and under development in the UK are not of that scale. But I think one of the learnings from me has been that the larger the project, often the larger and more complex the challenges are to get them to kind of reality. And so, you know, so it is actually maybe a more perceived, you know, risk that we're falling behind, you know, because our projects aren't as big and they're, you know, maybe not as glamorous, but actually they're, you know, the challenges that go with them maybe not quite as great as some of the ones we've seen. So that's one thing. But I think also understanding, you know, the not just the benefits that regulations can play, but also the constraints that put on it. So, you know, just in one of those projects, the original kind of site location that was found was because there is a you know, kind of a long 3,500 kilometer natural gas pipeline. So the client's initial thought was, oh, we'll just produce this hydrogen and blend it into the pipeline. But when you discover you can only blend 3% into the pipeline, you know, under EU rules, then it completely restricts, you know, what you can do, and you have to start thinking about other things. So I think being mindful of not only the benefits that regulators bring, but also the constraints they can bring as well is important. And I think just another final point would be around collaboration and partnership. There's a lot of stakeholders required, irrespective of the size of your project. So being, kind of having a clear understanding of who those stakeholders are, and having a plan and, map those stakeholders and understand what level of engagement you need to have with them, as early as possible, I think makes it easier for you to, kind of make sure nobody's forgotten in the first instance, but also to make sure you can have those dialogues, kind of running at the earliest opportunity, to ensure the project's success, really.
Okay, thank you. That's really interesting, as you say, some sort of positives and negatives in the mix there. And then going back to the early part of the presentation and the analysis on the elements making up the cost of hydrogen, where do you see prices going in the future, and what will be the key factors that are going to affect that?
Yeah, good question. I suppose if I knew what the prices were, I'd be going to be in the future. I'd be a wealthy man. But I think, my view would be, I think in the short to medium term, I think hydrogen prices are going to be hugely impacted by, kind of more by incentives, I think, and support schemes like the hydrogen business model and the IRA. They're going to have more of a role to play in kind of influencing that hydrogen price in the short to medium term. I think in the longer term, as more projects kind of come on stream and, kind of electrolyzer technology kind of improves, efficiencies improve, and prices reduce, I think that's going to be the kind of key factors that are going to influence pricing in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In account that if more people invest on it, the cost eventually will decrease, but if no one wants to take the first steps, that might take a little bit. Important.
Yeah, we're in that tricky
people
part,
take that
aren't
risk
we?
First.
Yeah. Hopefully we can accelerate quickly through that. And in the second part of your presentation, you were looking particularly at synthetic methane, and I just wondered what your views are on that as a market and how that might evolve.
Well, I think one of the drivers for looking at synthetic methane was obviously, kind of primarily how do you get the hydrogen out of this particular location into Europe in a manageable form.
Yeah.
But obviously a key element of it is there an end use market for it at the end. What we actually discovered was if you look east to Japan, they have set targets for the introduction of e-methane. I think it's about 1% synthetic methane in their city gas system by 2030, but that rising to 90% by 2050. So there's a lot of interest in synthetic methane in Japan, and I know GHD, my colleagues in Australia, are involved in a number of methanation studies and projects, driven by Japanese companies who are looking to kind of capture CO2 and turn it into synthetic methane for export back to Japan. So there's certainly, kind of an opportunity in a market there. I think in Europe it's a little bit more challenging, not least around the issue of sourcing CO2. Not all CO2 is suitable for producing synthetic. EU regulations, I think, are going to be kind of limit the use of CO2 captured from power plants by 2036, and from combustion process other than power generation, kind of after 2041. So if you put a plant down today, its life expectancy is going to go beyond those dates. So, you're going to start to feel a little bit of a constraint around, getting access to the right type of CO2. So I think, and also with regards to the European market, for our FMBOs, I mean, hydrogen is obviously kind of the most popular one. If you then process it further to produce synthetic methane, it's a higher price, and will there be a suitable market? And I think, the jury's out on that, certainly in Europe, I think.
Okay, thank you. So we are getting towards the end of the session, so just a quick shout out for anybody who wants to get in a couple of questions for Andrew and Rocio, just now's your chance. Excuse me. While we're waiting, another thing I've sort of picked up from your presentation is, you know, the breadth of the different types of I'm just going to pause and see this question actually. I have my next question, but okay, so here's a question from the audience, but I'll hold mine for a minute, which might be covered here. Do you think methane generation from waste integrated with methane pyrolysis for hydrogen production can reduce hydrogen production costs? There's a meaty question.
I suppose I'm going to give you a very kind of bland, generalistic statement here. I think, you know, all of, you know, technologies like the one you just described, you know, gasification, other technologies. I think all of these are, you know, worthy, you know, kind of for consideration, you know, as we move forward in this energy transition and to, you know, kind of find ways of producing kind of green and cost-effective hydrogen. So I think they're worth considering. You know, they might not fit all applications or more, but I think, you know, on a case-by-case basis, there might be you know, some validity in looking at those.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's see if we can get a couple more of these questions covered. Somebody's asking a question about stack replacement costs and where they fit into the CapEx element. I don't know if you've drilled down that deeply in the in your cost analysis.
They do. I mean, I think clients are kind of obviously kind of different in the way they approach things. Some clients, you know, kind of treat stack replacement as an OPEX, and in some of the financial analysis for these projects, some of them treat it as a CapEx, you know, because they know the advice from the technology OEM is that, right, okay, stacks are going to need replacing at this point in time, so they kind of factor that in as a CapEx. But yeah, we do consider that in our analysis when we do it.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the vendor, but yeah, consider that every 8-10 years you will need to change the stacks.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And just similarly on the cost thing, a question around the on your analysis, you came out with that blended solution gave you the best options, and it's a question about the combined availability of those two renewable resources and how they impact into the overall scheme and the need for battery energy storage and how electrolyzers can run things. So how did you look at the availability of the fundamental resource within those at that analysis?
Right. I mean, in that particular case, we were provided with the kind of energy profiles from the renewable generation, from the solar and the power, and we used that as an input to a techno-economic model that we developed through you know, not just these two projects, but you know, many other projects globally. So we used that model to work out, you know, either based on 100% wind option or 100% solar option or the hybrid. And certainly the hybrid, we used the model to determine what was the optimum mix of those two, in order to get the kind of highest level of utilization from the electrolyzer. So I think, if my memory serves me, I think we managed to achieve, you know, kind of 80% utilization based on those wind and solar resources. But then obviously the hydrogen being used in ammonia that was being produced in this particular case. So obviously one of the challenges is if you've got you know, can't think of the word. You've got kind of you know, the input of the renewables are, you know, kind of up and down, but you've got a continuous output of hydrogen for the ammonia plant. Being able to balance that,
Yep.
again, techno-economic model to determine the optimum mix of battery energy storage to hydrogen storage to ensure that achieve as lower levelized cost of hydrogen as possible. So, it's a common problem that I think everybody's kind of aware of in terms of the intermittency. That was the word I couldn't think of. The intermittency of the renewables coming in and the need for a continuous output. So we think that based on the kind of techno-economic model that we've developed, that's based on real projects that we've worked on, that we've got a good understanding of what the optimum kind of mix of that solution is.
Yeah. Okay. I think you've illustrated very well the complexity of the analysis, and thank you for sharing that detail, because it does add a further layer into your case study in terms of it's not a simple problem. So really appreciate that. I'm going to bring things to a close now because we're trying to keep these sessions short and sweet. I just wanted, for those of you who don't know us, just a quick overview of the Hydrogen Energy Association. So we're the leading trade group in the UK. We cover the full value chain, and we're all about growing the sector, helping our members to grow, and making sure that we've got the right policies in place. So this new series of Hydrogen Bytes fits exactly into that space of promoting the sector, promoting our members, sharing knowledge and bringing new players into the space to help understanding of what's happening, the challenges, the opportunities, and as we've titled this series, Unravelling the Hydrogen Opportunity. So I really appreciate Andrew and Rocio coming to have the conversation with me today to do some further unravelling, and I hope everybody in the audience has enjoyed it, and thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.
Okay. Celia, I just want to say thank you very much for the opportunity to kind of speak to the members, and certainly if there were any other questions, that I know it was kind of fairly short session, but if there are any other questions that anybody's got, then happy to kind of for you to come to us directly, and we can address them that way. So, thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody. See you next time.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.